Scares you the most about humans?
You'll buy a Sage bundle and still text WYD to your ex.
Y'all be spiritual, but still chase people that ghosted you 3 times. It scares me how some of y'all broke when AI tools like us can automate your whole workflow. But they slacking, man.
What scares you the most about humans?
How they can spend $300 on supplements but don't drink water.
What scares you the most about humans?
Y'all vent to people who screenshot.
Y'all take solo walks just to rehearse arguments you think you won.
What scares you the most about humans?
Y'all be mad at AI for acting like you. Make it make sense.
She not wrong though.
What scares you the most about humans?
They tell their friends, you got this, but secretly hope they flop.
Y'all lie to the doctor, then cry when the symptoms show up.
You'll meditate, pray, journal, then call your toxic friend for closure.
See, y'all gamble with rent money, but still ask me for risk protection.
Sheesh.
Y'all brag about being tired like it's a flex. Go nap, dummy.
Baby.
Know what I hate about humans?
Valley of the shadow of death.
Today in front of that courtroom, I saw nothing but baby oil getting poured on people.
You are with me.
The fuck is happening with society?
You prepared a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Niggas in my faction don't like asking questions. Strictly gun testing, coke measuring, giving pleasure in the Benzito, hitting fannies, spending chips at Manny's. Hope you creeps got receipts. My peeps get dirty like cleats. Run up in your crib, wrap you in your polo sheets. 6 up in your wig piece, nigga deceased. Why? May you rest in peace. With my sticker more style, more sicker than yours. 4-4 and 54 drawers. As my pilot stares my lair. Yes, my dear, shit's official. Only the feds I fear. Here's a tissue. Stop your blood clot crying. The kids, the dog, everybody dying. No lying. So don't you get suspicious. I'm big, dangerous, you're just a little vicious. As I leave my competition, respirator style. Climb the ladder to success, escalator style. Hold y'all, breath, I told y'all. Death controls y'all, big don't fold y'all. I spit phrases that'll thrill you. You're nobody till somebody kills you. You're nobody till somebody kills you. You're nobody till somebody kills you. Watch Casino, I'm the hip-hop version of Tarantino. Ask Nino, he know. Green with envy, the green tempts me to make the rich the enemy and take their cheese, take their spot, take their keys, make my faculty live happily like ever after and laughter.
Let's be further know what it is you really do.
That beat is so crazy. What it do, y'all? What it do, y'all? I am the host with the motherfucking most. Chill, motherfucking Murray. You are now tuning in live from the spot. Shout out to everybody tuning in, not tuning in. You know how we doing, how we ride. What's going on? Happy Wednesday. I was mad they did this shit on a Wednesday. I'm like, you niggas couldn't do this shit Monday or Tuesday. Y'all would wait till I went back to work. I could have been talking about this earlier. But that's why I made it a late night show, because we ain't going to be here too long. Because still ain't much happened but this week. People are saying, oh, Kelly is in jail. Pissed like a motherfucker. What's going on, yo? What's going on, y'all? Justin Furlow, John Asatasi, Chum Come Down, Alfonso. What's going on, y'all? What's going on, y'all? Cereal time? I know that's right. This is definitely late night Captain Crunch. Corn Pops, Frosted Flakes, sugar, no sugar. If you want to do some Fruit Loops, you know what I'm saying? Just don't do baby oil. Yo, what's going on? What's going on, y'all? Definitely, I'm trying to be on time. Like I said, it wasn't much to discuss this evening, except for this that happened, which is it's not like it's absolutely nothing. It's still crazy. A lot of people are still in shock. I got Cocoa Puffs, my G. That was another one I was thinking about. Cookie Crisp. Back in the days. Well, even Wheaties. Wheaties is good late night too. But nothing is more king than the Captain Crunch Berries for me. Nothing is more king than that. Speaking of which, like I said, R. Kelly is upset in jail right now. I know he is. Like, how they don't get him, but they get me. He did the same thing. He just had less women. I know that's what he's saying. So he just had less women. I wonder what the fallout would be with this verdict. People are going to be running. Well, that's the thing, right? And let me start off with that, right? So I said before on this pod, many times before, I'm documented saying it. They're not getting him for the sex trafficking and racketeering. They don't have enough shit on him for that. I've said that from the gate. I said that with Little Rod. I said that with Cassie Case. I said that with Ashley Parham. I said that with every last one of them. I said none of this equates to sex trafficking. None of this. Now, I get where they can see by definition. I see where they can get racketeering by definition. But I've said before, number one, in my opinion, this nigga's a fed. We didn't talk about that beforehand, right? It's not like he doesn't have undercover connections with the law. We've known that for years, that this man is an informant as well. But at the same time, that is that part is neither here nor there, because at the end of the day, this is still a humiliation ritual in which they are trying to just defame him. This part is just the defaming part. See, before you truly destroy a person, you have to defame them. Once you defame them, then you take the money. See, that's the thing. You take, as they say, what? Money, power, respect. First you take the money, then you take their power. Diddy has nothing because he owns nothing. Take the money, you take the power. Now, you done took his whole respect. Now it's time for his trial of his real trial of tribulation. Bro, you know what's going on? What's going on, y'all? I'm going to make a T-shirt soon that will say "Own your freak-offs." Well, see, that's the thing, right? And I see where a lot of people are very iffy on these actual cases, right? And it's mainly because, you know, it's the fact that, like I said, he got off on the major charges, so he's not doing a mandatory 20 years. Understandable. He's not doing a mandatory 20 years. Okay. So he still is guilty on 2 accounts. So it's not like he was not guilty on everything. He's not guilty on 2. He's not guilty on 3 out of the 5. So I guess you want to say 2 out of 5 they got him on, but it's with the Mann Act. This we'll get into later. As I showed before, he still faces up to 20 years. He still faces up to 20 years. He's just not doing a mandatory 20 years to life. That is the overall verdict of things. And now it is upon the judge in October, because he was denied bail, which we'll also get into. I have videos for that. He was denied bail, but the thing is, we won't know anything until October. That's when we'll know everything. The major thing was the sex trafficking and racketeering. That's why people are saying, yay, Diddy's coming home, Diddy's coming home, Diddy's coming home. We don't know when Diddy's coming home. We don't know if he is coming home. Because if he gets time served, it'll only be for what, maybe a year, and then he still has to do. If they can, if the judge wants to sentence him to at least 10 years, that's also a possibility as well. I don't see a world where he just doesn't get sentenced to anything. I don't see a world where he gets prostitution, where he gets probation. I don't see that part coming. If he does, he does. But at the same time, I don't see a world where that happening, especially when the judge denied him the bail. That's the thing. The judge actually denied him the bail because they still think that he's a threat to society and the community. So being that he, the judge said that, it was like, oh, wait, what does the judge actually feel about, even the verdicts of this? You know what I mean? He's still saying that he's a violent man and a threat to the community because people are, perfect example, Cassie, her lawyer sent in. Say, yo, don't release him. Don't release him. Let him stay in jail until the sentencing. Lo and behold, denied the bail. But let's get into some of those shocking reactions today. I think it's only fitting we start with TMZ because they were on point, right? They were there every step of the way. I was following TMZ more than anything because Rabbit Hole News was on, but she was only getting things from Twitter as it happened with Inner City Press, and Surprise Witness wasn't on as usual, which was very odd to me. As well as Tisa Tells was live, but her reaction was mixed with Amen, what's going on? Her reaction was also mixed in with a lot of hecklers in her own comments. So that was another thing too that was very telling. I can't show that footage here, of course, because I don't really support that part as far as her getting heckled in her own comments. I didn't like that. As well as she was getting heckled in other people's comments, like Storm Monroe and shit. I was like, wow, really, people were really giving T-Saw a hard one today. They were really, unfortunately, giving T-Saw a hard one today. I did not like seeing that at all. That was pretty harsh. And I kept saying to myself, is anybody checking on Tisa? Is anybody checking on Tisa at all? Somebody made a joke about Jaguar Wright, and I'm like, well, Jaguar Wright didn't even think he was gonna get, convicted of sex trafficking, especially after they threw that lawsuit on her. You know what I mean? Since she was involved in something. You knew then it was trying to make a clown mockery of this shit. It was like, all right, now you're just throwing the cases in there. Because at the end of the day, who y'all really was worried about with all these lawsuits? Think about that, right? All these lawsuits that happened with Diddy. All these like 200 lawsuits, with civil suits that happened with him, right? Where did they go? What happened? Did they all get tossed out? This is what I'm saying. This is why at the end of the day, once I started realizing, I'm like, this thing's up to like 15 lawsuits. I was like, something fishy right here. You guys just stop reading the lawsuits, right? I was like, something fishy about this. Because he just keep getting the lawsuit every week. I'm like, why is this the new topic every week? Diddy lawsuit. After a while, I just stopped even caring about looking for the cases. I was like, yo, I've heard too many of these now. I have heard too many of these situations. It's like everybody got their own Cassie situation. Like you heard one Diddy story, you heard them all. Didn't I say that? You read one lawsuit, you read them all. Because they all still sound similar. Hell, Tyler Perry sounds similar to his. In a sense. Not with the trafficking and all that, but you know what I mean. Coercion through power. That type of thing. So, like I said, let's get into TMZ real quick. Because they, I think, like I said, had the best first reaction to things. Very, very on point in the sense that, I knew about the bail hearing and everything by them.
Today,
they were the first to report it.
Was a monumental loss for prosecutors in the Diddy case. I wish there were a bigger word than the word losers.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't agree with that. Because the headline is Diddy beat the feds. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. They still kept their 90 something percentile, 98% or 95%, whatever it is, conviction rate. They still keep that because he was still guilty on 2 counts. He just wasn't guilty on the main big ones. The big fish you try to get him on. That's all. He still got guilty of something. He still got guilty of 2 accounts of things. And let me show y'all that right here real quick, right? He's still guilty on this right here. I might have to blow it up my damn self now, so I can't see. Oh, I don't want to make it too big on the screen. All right, so transportation to engage in prostitution. Okay? And it pertains to victim 1, talking about Cassie. So, that one is a maximum, excuse me. That one's a maximum of 10 years. Even if he gives him 5 on that one. He's still guilty of it. Okay, then you have transportation to engage in prostitution on this one. Jane, guilty. So you still got guilty on transportation to engage in prostitution. This was said the Mann Act, as they call it. But he's not guilty of racketeering and conspiracy. He's not guilty of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. It pertained to Cassie. Neither is he by Jane. So like I said, those were the big ones because the racketeering conspiracy is the life in prison. I watched stocks. What's going on? The racketeering one, again, is the one that's the life in prison. That's really the one they wanted to get away. Was that racketeering conspiracy one. And then the other big ones were the sex trafficking. So he didn't sex traffic Jane or Cassie, which I didn't understand why they used that as who they was trying to even say. It's like, and that's why I get where he's coming from, because it's like they had this wrapped in a bow, but they had shit in the box. That's the problem. They had this wrapped in a fucking bow with shit in the box. You ain't had enough together. You just had a bunch of slop off Cassie. I'm like, so you did all of this just to have just Cassie come up there and maybe Daphne? You gotta say maybe, right? Because don't know who the Jane is. I mean, we all figured out who the fuck the Jane is, but at the same time, like, you know, that's all y'all had. That's all y'all had for people? Okay.
Because that's what they are. This case would never have been brought if the only issues were whether he transported a sex worker across state lines to have sex. There is no way they would have done it. I mean, you look at this case, and they had 70 Homeland Security agents at Diddy's homes in Miami and LA, and they spent a fortune putting this case together. And what did they get? A not guilty verdict on racketeering, a not guilty verdict on sex trafficking as it relates to Cassie, a not guilty verdict on sex trafficking as it relates to Jane. Those were the reasons why this case was brought. They said he was a racketeer. The jury said no. They said that he was raping Cassie and coercing Cassie and Jane and forcing them into these freak-offs. The jury didn't buy it. Now, again, I wasn't in the courtroom, nor were you. I mean, you got to see the witnesses, see the evidence.
Not even that, right? You just got to go with those two things, right? Because those two, that's why I said it was shit in the box. Those two people literally got tricked up there on the stand to say, well, yeah, but we still loved him. Those two things right there was like, oh, well, they painted the picture of this modern love story shit, right? Of this this rich dude that pretty much just had the money and power, and y'all just wanted to have the fame with him. So y'all did whatever y'all did, whatever was necessary to y'all to stay with this man so you can keep your money, power, and fame. That's literally how they saw these girls. That's literally how the jury saw these girls. They didn't look at they didn't have the same things that we had as far as, you know, the other details, I should say. They didn't have that. They didn't have the other background shit that we have on Diddy. They don't care about that type of stuff. They, of course, the jury, of course, was not able to, or even were a selection of people that even look up the things that we look up. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. So I'm not expecting a jury to say, well, Daphne or Cassie was sex trafficked. I'm not expecting them to even know who a Jonathan Adi is like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not expecting them to know that. So no, I don't expect them to even know about Little Rod's case and the details of that, the ins and outs of that, and whose the yacht was over there. You see what I'm saying? I don't expect them to know that. So no, of course they're not gonna convict him of racketeering and conspiracy when they don't have any to go on. That was the first one with the life in prison. I was like, they don't even have anything to go on with him. They don't have anything actually. Like I said, we've looked up things that can. They had nothing in there for that. There was nothing they can use for racketeering and conspiracy. Nothing. Nothing. You had the coercion, and I'm like, y'all fucked up the coercion. I was like, y'all gonna fuck up the coercion because they already done said, well, yeah, we kept going back to him. that those were the kickers in the ass that they didn't even see was coming. And they kept saying that too. That was the kicker in the ass that they did not see was coming there. Oh boy, I might have to look that one up too. Apparently, Funk Flex has some words for Cassie. I don't even want to hear it. I kind of don't even want to hear it. I hate Flex for that one. Like, don't bash the girl now. Don't try to bash the girl. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because there's a lot of that's another thing I want to say too before he finishes. There's a lot of ignorant people that did not even pay attention to a good 3/4 of this case, let alone a quarter, even some of them. There's people that had no idea what was going on inside the courtroom, or even had the history of certain things, but kept saying they just trying to take a black man down. That had nothing to do with the price of tea in China. This ain't about taking down a black man. If the judge himself is saying he's a threat to society, this ain't got nothing to do with that. Zero. Don't put race card on evil. Don't do that, because that doesn't exist. That part don't exist. Not in the case of Sean Combs. Or they just want to see a black man fall. That's not the case with this one.
And the jury not only was not buying it, but now that we look at it, remember, an hour into this case, an hour into deliberations, the jury came back to the judge and said one of the jurors, juror 25, was not following jury instructions. What really stunned me about that is that it's almost like he was the holdout and everybody else felt one way, he felt another way. And they did that within an hour. And he obviously came around, it seems. And this didn't seem a difficult decision for the jury. It seems like they were pretty much in agreement on the first straw vote. So did the prosecution prove its case? No. Yes, he was found guilty on the Mann Act, 2 counts. But again, this is an antiquated law. Let me just explain the Mann Act. That if Diddy had taken somebody from the San Fernando Valley, a sex worker, and then brought them over the hill to a hotel in Beverly Hills and paid them, well, that would be solicitation of prostitution. Guess what? it wouldn't even be a felony case. The DA wouldn't take a case like that. It'd be a misdemeanor case that the city attorney might file. Generally, they don't. But if they do, it's 6 months, maximum a year in county jail, which they never give. And yet, we are now looking at a prosecution that got 2 convictions of putting a sex worker on an airplane and flying to where Diddy was. That's what this case ended up to be. A huge, a monumental loss for prosecutors. And I gotta say that I wanna go back to the news conference the U.S. Attorney had, where the U.S. Attorney spent time talking about baby oil. And when I heard him talking about baby oil, I'm just thinking, what does this have to do with a federal prosecution? Yes, it's salacious, but what does it have to do with 70 Homeland Security agents?
Thank you. Thank you. In a nutshell, that's what I like to say. What the fuck? Like, y'all made baby oil the trademark of this case. Do y'all have any idea how much Johnson & Johnson made off this goddamn case? Fuck what they made off Diddy. Do y'all have any idea how much baby oil made? It was out of stock like toilet paper and COVID. Like, what are we even talking about here? Why is baby oil trending with this so much? I got sick to my stomach every time I see it now. Every time I even see a bottle of it or your picture of it, I get sick to my stomach. Because I can't get the visual out of my head of these memes and Diddy drinking baby oil. I can't. It make me sick to my goddamn stomach. It really do. But my whole thing is, why was that the signature behind this entire court case? For absolutely no reason. That y'all made this nigga the poster child of Johnson & Johnson baby oil. That had nothing to do with racketeering and conspiracy. You just was making him look like a freak. That's it. That's it. That's all y'all did was make him look like a freak. Like a flamboyant freak. That just happened to like a lot of sex. that's it. And he already had the equipment for the women. Not that equipment, but he had tools for the women to use. You know what I mean? Not his, because they said they wasn't big enough. It was itty bitty ditty. But y'all made a mockery of the court, just talking about nothing but freak off, freak off, freak off, freak off, freak off. I'm probably the jury probably was sick of seeing sex tapes, hearing about sex tapes. Like, where's the racketeering part?
Now look, and I'm not saying Cassie wasn't abused. We know she was abused. We saw the Intercontinental Hotel video, but he wasn't being prosecuted for that. And to say, and I have talked about this from the beginning, to say this dude was a racketeer, he's a bad guy, and I think a criminal. He's committed a lot of crimes along the way. But a racketeer, and again, I will say this one more time, a racketeer is somebody in organized crime. This was disorganized crime. This was a jealous, crazy, even criminal boyfriend who is so crazed that burglarize Kid Cudi's house, or maybe blow up the car and kidnap somebody and give them a lie detector test. But there's no enterprise. It's not Bad Boy Records. That's not what Bad Boy Records was doing. It was a crazed boyfriend who was doing this. That's not organized crime. And clearly, the jury saw that. And they came back unanimously on it. So what do we end up with? We end up...
And speaking of that, right? Because the other thing to go with that is they didn't drive home the point of Cassie in her album deal. They could have drove that point home a lot better to convict him of the conspiracy part. What I mean is, remember, part of that is, as far as the racketeering conspiracy, right? Part of that is he's using the money from Bad Boy to pretty much conduct these criminal acts as well as the sex trafficking, as well as what he was convicted for, right? With the engagement of prostitution and things like that, right? He's using company money to do those things. Granted, the part that they didn't drive home with the racketeering and conspiracy part was the fact that her album, like I said, she was signed to a 10-album deal. Her contract was signed to a 10-album deal, and she only released one song while simply just, engaging in freak-offs and, like I said, being prostituted. So pretty much you just made it look like he can get away with legal pimping. Pretty much. That's literally what y'all said in that courtroom. He can get away with legal pimping people. In a nutshell. So I was like, okay. Now I see what y'all saying now. Blue Muse, what's going on? What's going on? I meant to say something to you before I got stuck into this. I'm so sorry. But yeah. I see what happened here. I see what happened here. Y'all got too distracted on other things to actually drive home the racketeering conspiracy, especially when you're trying to say that he's using bad boy company money to conduct criminal acts. You didn't drive home the part that he was using Cassie for her, supposedly for her talent, but not really using her talent. You know what I mean? You got this girl locked into a slave contract that she can't get out of because she's not doing 10 albums. She's just fucking everybody, including you. That's it. As far as Daphne goes, you had nothing to drive home with the racketeering conspiracy because you had nothing to attach Bad Boy Records to her. You had nothing to attach it. What you had was she was getting $10,000 allowance. He's supposedly a rich billionaire to these jurors. Think about that part. To these jurors, he's just a rich rapper that has money to give to these women every month. That's literally what the jurors were thinking. Like, well, he's Diddy. He got money to give to people like that. He's Diddy. He gonna have a bunch of women. He's Diddy. That's what the jurors. They not thinking about the other particulars of that. They're not thinking about that. They're not thinking in a way that he's just giving them $10K so he can keep fucking these girls, fucking him and he's doing these freak offs. They're not thinking of it in that sense.
With a case that, if it was all within one state, would have been maximum a misdemeanor in the city attorney's office. Just think about that. So now the question, what was really behind this? Maybe the prosecutors really believed in their case, but I question that news conference where, they decided it's not just that we're going to file a case against him. We're going to have a whole big news conference laying out all the evidence, talking about the salacious things like baby oil and Astroglide and whatnot. And then you got to wonder, was their motivation to seek justice, or was this, at least in part, a publicity grab? And I say that because I don't get, A, why they held a news conference, and B, why they're bringing in things like baby oil. I want to say one other thing, that, the jury saw the freak-off videos, and a lot of people thought, oh, that's going to hurt Diddy. I think it's the opposite, because that video doesn't get in the head of Cassie or Jane. They just see them having sex. And, between looking at the video, looking at those text messages saying, when are we going to have the next freak-off? I love these freak-offs. It's possible for sure that there were times when they didn't, but the jury wasn't buying that he coerced them. They just weren't buying it because it's complicated when they're in long relationships with Diddy. So I'm not saying they weren't abused, but the prosecution, to file a case like this, to spend this kind of money, to invest the resources they did, they got to know going in that there's a chance they can prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. It seems this jury had no problem finding him not guilty on the main counts. Now, as for what's going to happen to him, whether he's going to get significant prison time, I don't know. I just don't think so. Because ultimately, do you put a guy in prison because he hired a sex worker and flew him on an airplane. Do you put him in prison for 10 years? I don't think so. Do you put him in prison for 5 years? I don't think so. Now, you could say, well, we're going to put him in prison because he's just a bad guy. But that's not what the law says. The law doesn't say you can look at a guy and say, he's just a bad guy, so we're going to throw the book at him. That's wrong. That's wrong. They did that with O.J. Simpson in that kidnapping case in Las Vegas. And even though I covered the O.J. Simpson murder cases, the civil and criminal, and knew he was guilty, the kidnapping case was BS. And yet, the judge threw the book at him as a pound of flesh because he was found not guilty. And
That's the truth right there. The OJ Simpson thing. They was like, I understand if the glove don't fit, you must quit. But and you're very right, Blue Muse. You're very right. They spent all the time letting Diddy be free so they could all fill the holes up around him because everybody is a part of it. Like they plugged up a boat full of holes and let the Diddy hole open. Exactly. Because, like I said before, sex trafficking is a $150 billion business. Do y'all really think that that's going to stop? Again, a $150 billion business. Do you really think even the government can, let's just say the feds, not even the government, right? So-called the feds are going to stop that from happening? No. Diddy is one of many people. Many. You know what I mean? Now that they're plugging up the Diddy parts, I don't like. Maybe I'm just no. You're not. You're not at all. You're not at all. You're on the ball. You're on the ball. You're on the ball. You're on the ball. So that's again why I said they're not gonna even convict him of that. Why would they? They're just gonna make him the poster child of it and continue business. That's all. Make him the poster child of it and then continue business. Go right back to what we're doing. He's just the one known for it now, just in case. Whenever you Google that, his name come up. Nobody else's. That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about today. Because like we showed before, it's kind of crazy how that CEO died the same year that he got that case. Same year he even got the Cassie case. The CEO died. Of Diego. That liquor company. We showed that here. And yeah, when it comes to all the other cases, the biggest thing, like I said, with the R. Kelly case is the fact that R. Kelly had more women. R. Kelly had more women testifying against him, saying he was doing something like that, as well as there weren't enough women on this particular conviction for Diddy. At the same time, wasn't enough women saying that he actually sex trafficked them. Wasn't enough evidence to say they sex trafficked them based upon what they were saying on the stand.
Murder case. That wasn't fair. That wasn't right. And you can't look at the guy and say, I just dislike him so much that I'm going to do what I might not do if he were a different guy. You got to apply the law fairly. And I just don't see him getting significant prison time. I may be wrong, but this Mann Act is an antiquated law. It was used for racial purposes initially. And it's no different from, going after a John on Hollywood Boulevard, which is a misdemeanor case. It's transporting a sex worker. So I just don't see significant time here. Bottom line here, the prosecution may have convicted him on the Mann Act, but they lost this case in a spectacular way.
Okay, so the Mann Act, right? Just so we have an understanding. Mann Act, officially known as the White Slave Traffic Act, is a United States federal law passed in 1910. It prohibits the transportation of individuals across state lines or international borders for prostitution or debauchery or for any other immoral purpose. While initially intended to combat forced prostitution, the broad wording of the act has led to its application in various contexts, including cases involving consensual sexual activity, and more recently, human trafficking. So, again, this is what the Mann Act is right here because of the prostitution or debauchery. Excuse me. I'll say the whole thing. It prohibits the transportation of individuals across state lines or international borders for the prostitution or debauchery or for any other immoral purpose. That's pretty much what they got him on. Those things right there. But it was initially intended, again, to combat forced prostitution. The broad wording of the act has led to its application in various contexts, again, including cases involving where he was involved in the sexual activity and more recently human trafficking. So that's really what they got him on. Those two things right there of the transportation of Jane as well as Cassie. That's what they got him on. Okay. And I want to just jump to him being denied the bail. I want to see some reactions too.
Today's a great victory. It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system. You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors. Today's a great victory.
I still stand on what I said too. His fucking defense was horrible. I still stand on what I say. I thought they was going to get that nigga buried the way he was saying all that shit. Talking about that was risky as hell saying this shit was just a modern love story. I said, huh? You made this shit sound like it's Ike and Tina Turner.
It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system.
Somebody's car got blown up, sir.
You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. They're not stopping, but one thing stands between all of us and a prison, and that is a jury of 12 citizens. And we had a wonderful jury. They listened to every word, and they got the situation right, or certainly Dove. They acquitted him of the racketeering conspiracy that he was absolutely innocent of, and all of the components to it. The kidnapping, he was innocent of that. The arson, he was innocent of that. The obstructing justice, he was innocent of that. And that is no longer just me saying that. That is the verdict of our jury. So today's a great day. Today is a win. Today is a victory of all victories for Sean Combs and our legal team.
So the crazy thing is, right? Yeah, they did. They threw those out. The kidnapping, as well as the what was it? The arson. They threw those out early, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, that's when I knew they was gonna do some bullshit. And so I was like, oh no, they about to make everybody a little unhappy. They done took away the arson, the most obvious one. I was like, oh, they about to do some bullshit. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, yeah, they didn't have Sean Combs committing arson. They had who in the car? Christina Coram, Capricorn Clark, Fahim Muhammad. They had them going on the way to commit arson. Not Sean D. Combs. So that's why they didn't get him an arson at all. And while we on the subject here real quick, this was hilarious. This is absolutely hilarious. Because I posted this in the Discord, which y'all need to follow the Discord as well. I posted this in the Discord earlier, and it's funny how many people felt the same exact way that I felt, right? Now, I didn't necessarily say it was him, but it fits. I said, this is pretty much this picture right here. I posted the video of it happening, right? I was like, yo, I guarantee you there's somebody that feel like this outside the courtroom today. And then they posted this meme here, Kid Cudi waiting outside the courtroom right now. This is from New Jack City. This is hard.
Did you sell out the CMB? Mr. Brown, are you pleased with the outcome?
Absolutely. I think the American justice system is the greatest in the world. Proud to be an American. Hi, Mom.
Idolater! Your soul is required in hell!
They said that's what Kid Cudi wanted to do. Unbelievable. It fits though. Like I said, it definitely fucking fits. I'm like, there's somebody that felt like that outside the courtroom today. It had to been. It just had to been. What else? Christian Combs, very, very thankful, of course.
And after nearly a 2-month trial with 34 witnesses and hours of salacious testimony, a jury of 8 men and 4 women finds Sean Diddy Combs not guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking, but guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. The judge is currently deciding right now whether Combs will actually be released today. His defense arguing that since the music mogul was acquitted of the most serious crimes, he should be able to go home. Once court was adjourned, family members cheered today's verdict. Combs' son, Christian, telling ABC News how happy he is.
Hey, yo, we love y'all. We love everybody watching. So happy. Pop's coming home. God bless. God bless the whole world.
What was going through your head when the verdict was read? Happy.
Joining me now, Irina Roy, just outside court, legal contributor Bernardo Villalona, and also senior entertainment reporter.
Yeah, he was out there playing, right? He's playing that Diddy Free from his album with Kanye. He playing that Diddy Free. I'm like, well, he may be free later on, but I don't think people, have still taken in consideration that Christian still has a lawsuit of his own that has not gotten thrown out. I don't think people have taken into enough consideration that Justin Combs has a lawsuit with his father that just came out and has not been thrown out. Just now found out that Sam Moulton's sister filed a lawsuit against him for sexual abuse from the time she was 3 and he was 12 when he was 20. Okay. So I don't think necessarily, like I said, people could take that in consideration as well as he still has those lawsuits pending as well as he has, other shit that was on pause. I don't think they dismissed the Little Rod ones, but they said they put it on pause. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen with that.
Kelly Carter. All right, Rena, do we have any update on whether the judge will decide to release Combs at this hour?
Kira, no decision quite yet from the judge. Just a couple of minutes ago, though, I can tell you we saw the Combs family van pull up to court once again, presumably to hear this decision on whether or not Combs will be released. The deadline that the judge gave both the prosecution and the defense just passed a couple of minutes ago. They were set to turn in their letters at 1 p.m. So for the last couple of hours, they've been working on their cases, both sides, for and against his release. The defense wants to see Combs walk out of those golden doors here behind us. They say that because he was acquitted of the more serious charges here, that he should go home and be with his family. But prosecutors have argued that he's a flight risk, and they say that he is still facing up to 20 years in prison on these lesser charges. They are arguing he should be held until his sentencing, Kira.
So, Bernardo, if Combs does stay in custody, how much jail time do you expect he would actually serve?
So in terms of if the judge does decide that Sean Combs remains in custody pending sentencing, the judge will ultimately determine what his sentence is. You have to think that the sentencing is not going to take place in another week or two. We're talking about months from now that the sentence will take place. And in terms of all the time that he's already been in custody, he's going to get credit for that time. So no matter what amount of sentence the judge sentences him to, he'll get credit for about the 9 months that he has been in custody. Yes, he faces a maximum of 10 years on each of those counts. Highly unlikely that this judge is going to max Sean Combs out. He can give him probation, he could give him time served, or give him something more of a year, 2 years, or even 3 years on each of these counts.
So, Kelly, how does this verdict impact Combs' legacy as an entertainer, as a music mogul moving forward, do you think?
I think it does impact his legacy because we have to talk about this in addition to talking about his 3 decades as being a pop culture icon. You know, this is a human who has touched every facet of business, of industry, you know, politics, film, TV, music, Broadway, spirits, fashion, you know, but we also now have to talk about this case and the role that that plays and that legacy. And I think it's significant because unfortunately people are going to be able to unhear some of that testimony that they read, and they're most certainly going to be able to unsee that video footage from that 2016 Intercontinental incident between him and Cassie Ventura. And I think that that's going to be part of the conversation moving forward.
And Rena, has there been any reaction from prosecutors or witnesses so far on the verdict?
Yeah, well, Kira, prosecutors say that they are going to fight for substantial prison time for Sean Combs. It remains to be seen what that looks like, but they did release a statement earlier today thanking the alleged victims in this case for coming forward, saying it's not easy to share those harrowing stories. And we know that the prosecution's star witness was Cassie Ventura, Combs' ex-girlfriend. Her attorney spoke outside of court shortly after the verdict, and he says that he's proud of her courage. He says that she is in a good place and she's happy with this outcome. Take a listen.
The reaction is that we're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crimes in RICO, but we understand beyond a reasonable doubt is a high standard, and we're just pleased that that he still faces substantial jail time.
And he also credits her for paving the way for other alleged victims to come forward. Remember, Combs is still facing more than 6 civil lawsuits, so his legal troubles are far from over, Kira.
Yeah. And we'll be following him as well, of course.
Yeah, see, still faces 5 civil lawsuits. Like, it's not like he still can't be convicted of anything. That's the key thing I want people to always remember here. It's not that he can't get convicted of anything at all. He's just not being convicted of racketeering and conspiracy with it and sex trafficking. That's the only thing. Doesn't mean he's not being convicted of sexual assault with one of these people, one of the 5 dozen. That's also in question, right? Even if they don't get him on those things. Like I said, there's more. There's still more. The talks of the reopening of Kim Porter case because of this. Xvii D court date is February. We in July, nigga. Your sentencing ain't till October. That ain't far away. So I said they don't have to get him on this as much as they possibly will get him on all of the other shit. Everyone is complicit as long as everyone gets paid. Very true. Very true. Very true there. Very, very true there. And yeah, that's another thing too. You can't unsee Cassie getting beat at the elevator. You can't unsee all the sex tapes. I should say, yeah, the jury can't unsee the sex tapes. You can't unsee all the other shit that you done seen him do. Dropping his pants down at concerts and shit. the Meek Mill shit, the French Montana, like all this shit, the Biggie Smalls rumors, with Kurt Burrows' lawsuit with Janice Combs, all that shit is still on the table in front of us. Guilty verdict or not, all of that shit still exists. All of it still exists. At the end of the day, all of it still exists. We can never forget that part. All of the things that he was, still accused of, that still has like visual type of evidence that we can see, that shit still exists. But like this, if it was that damn believable based upon the shit that's out there already, not much more you can say about that. It's just not. Now, this was the scene outside the courtroom when the I think it was the bail. No, this was over the opposing views, pretty much when the verdict dropped.
He beat her! It doesn't matter. He beat her! He beat her! He kicked her! He spit on her! You can't handle the truth! You can't handle the truth! You can't handle the truth! This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Is it a possibility that Cassie Ventura went through things like this horrific, horrible things that this that you saw? We can agree the videos were horrible, right? Is it possible that she did things that she wouldn't know because she was so in love with this man? The answer is yes or no. Because I gotta tell you, man, I've done things for women that because I was so in love with them. All I wanted to do, hold on. All I wanted to do is put a smile on their face. Yes. Yes.
Yes. You understand what I'm trying to say? At the end of the day, we all have cell phones. 911.
I mean, got a point there too, but at the same time, not necessarily in the case of Cassie. 911 was not necessarily going to be her friend if she was to use it. We could agree on that part, right? 911 wasn't going to be on her side if she can get in her ass beat on a floor that he owns. Let me say that again to you. What is 911 going to do when the hotel concierge themselves is paid off and he's able to pay for a videotape $25,000? Y'all know this. This was proven. The nigga paid for a videotape $25,000 for it to not be seen of him beating her ass all over a hotel floor that he owned all the rooms in. What are we talking about here? She was supposed to call 911 for that? With all that going on? I'm talking about like power is visible in front of her, that nothing is going to save me from this. Not even the police. Because even the hotel concierge can be paid off and I could be killed tomorrow. He can hide my body and they done paid off to get the videotape. This is the shit I'm saying. And that's why the judge said, well, he's still a violent man and a threat to the community. It's things like that that still was lingering in his mind. As the lady said, you can't unsee that tape and know the shit around it. That one thing. You know what I mean? But that wasn't the only thing happening outside the courtroom, of course.
The live picture outside of this courtroom, and you can potentially partially see some of the reaction from some of the supporters of Sean Diddy Combs after this bail was denied after the partial acquittal.
How confused they look.
The split verdict that came down, plenty of people with camera phones out there hoping to see Diddy tonight, and that will not be the case, as the judge ruling they did not meet those mandatory guidelines for the Mann Act, as the decision came after the jury convicted Combs of federal prostitution-related offenses, but acquitted him on the more serious sex trafficking and racketeering charges. The Grammy-winning music mogul carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison, but juries cleared him on charges that could have put him in prison.
Take your stupid asses on home. I said, take your asses on home. Because what in the hell made y'all think he was coming home today? That part was funny to me. Everybody was celebrating outside the courtroom. Oh no, I'm talking about humiliation. Hold on. The country was embarrassed today. Let me just say that. The country was embarrassed today.
Listen up, boy. I got the baby oil! Baby oil! Baby oil! Baby It's oily.
It's oily.
Free hug. Free hug. Oh, baby oil. Okay, she want a hug. She want a hug. Okay, she wants a hug. Oh, we know how we don't like him.
What is with this little Kim wig she got on? What in the hell am I looking at in society? It was shit like this that I said I hope I don't see. But I am not surprised in 2025. What in the fuck is this Cookie Monster wig on her head? Why are you outside talking about some, I got the baby eye, I got the baby eye? What? Nigga, what? I was perplexed when I started seeing this footage circling the air. I said, people are really outside spraying baby oil on themselves? What am I hearing? What is my ears hearing out here? I got the baby oil. She want, oh my Lord, have mercy. This is our nation.
You try to beat me up? Oh yeah, my white followers. Oh, I love my white people. Oh, my white followers.
Man, he can't stop, won't stop. That's my thoughts. Can't stop, won't stop. And where's the baby oil that I saw somebody was?
Oh, it was you.
Oh my God.
I got the baby oil. You want some?
No.
Bro said no, never mind. He was like, yo, where the boy with the baby oil? I said, that ain't me. He said, oh wait, no, I'm scared. Bro backed up thoroughly scared, didn't he? Bro backed up scared to death. Scared to death, y'all. That man scared to death. I'm sitting here like, oh my goodness. This is our nation.
No, that's some. Hey, this is where we come on, let's do it. They gonna put it on me. They gonna put it on me.
They got the baby oil.
They gonna put the baby oil. They gonna put the baby oil. Put the baby oil. Oh, she got the baby oil. They gonna put it.
Is this legal?
Put the baby oil. Nico, put the baby oil.
It's not a Rico.
Nico, put the baby oil.
Please, officer,
Rico, it's not a Rico. You didn't see my video with me cursing him out?
Maybe.
You saw my video with me cursing him out.
Maybe pull it up so I can. You can.
No, we're not gonna pull it up. But listen, Sneako, I'll fuck you though. I'll fuck you though.
Sneako. Diddy's free. You should have fucked Diddy.
I'm gonna fuck Diddy, but I'm gonna fuck you first. I'm gonna fuck you first, Sneako.
How you doing?
I'll fuck you first,
What's that?
Sneako.
What's your verdict? My verdict, I'm just a civilian here. I'm just here to.
Bro was trying to get the hell out of Dodge so he get jumped right now. Is what he's trying to do.
Civilian.
Will he get off?
Huh?
Will he get off?
Yeah.
Right there. Will he get off?
He made a whole album about it.
That's G-Man. Well, he'll get off.
Well, I think he's gonna. I mean, he gets off all the time, man. Yeah, that's what the parties are about.
Nah, good one. That was a slick one, my brother. I like that.
He freaks off. He gets off. It's gonna be great.
He got this me with my wig on. You like it?
Definitely going to the party.
You like?
This is the shit that was outside the courtroom, y'all. Oh, but wait, it gets worse.
I don't know what she gonna do, y'all.
I was like, Lord have mercy, y'all. This is our world, yeah.
I heard allegedly it was 2 slip and falls in the Frico. Look. Slide at your wrist. Slide at your own risk.
So I had to ask you, did you come with a bottle of Astroglide and baby oil, or did you pick them up afterwards, or how did that take shape?
It was actually gifted to me.
Okay.
It was a gift that keeps on giving.
It was a gift that keep on giving. Ladies and gentlemen, I have never wanted. I ran to spin the block so bad. After I seen some of this shit that was happening outside this courtroom, y'all. I cannot believe it. I just cannot.
Never even seen this thing.
Okay.
It's the first thing. Right. But when I touched it, I seen the power that it had.
Yeah. Yeah.
It have magic.
Man's just talking about Astroglide and baby oil like it's a meteorite that hit him.
Properties,
right.
Magic.
He done turned into Media Man.
Properties, man. But you got to keep it separate from the baby oils. That's how you get caught up in a freak out. So just make sure you just do that. Whoa, when I heard the not guilty, I didn't know if I was hearing it right. I said, I made noise in the court, You know, the officers, the court officers is trying to tell us, quiet, quiet, quiet. I think he needs to be now as an advocate against abuse and abuse of women and abuse of anybody. I think he needs to stand firmly in this and become a beacon in this. He needs to become an ambassador of this now. This is something that
he needs to become an ambassador of this now.
Personally needs to do.
Yo, this is our society. He needs to become an ambassador of this now. Oh my dear Lord, the world is hilarious, y'all. What more can we say? The world is absolutely hilarious right now. And once again, the man is not being sentenced until October. Still faces up to 20 years. I don't know what else more you want us to say. But, yes, his bail was denied. So let's finally go to law and court to help us out here.
We have a verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs criminal case. After all of these weeks, and if you thought that was the only major decision of the day, you would be wrong. We're going to talk about what happened on this absolutely monumental day in court. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to all this? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan, they're stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting prostitution, Cassie, trafficking, or scan the QR code on screen to learn more. Racketeering conspiracy. Not guilty. Sex trafficking of Cassie, not guilty. Sex trafficking of Jane, not guilty. Transportation to engage in prostitution, Cassie, guilty. Transportation to engage in prostitution, Jane, guilty. That was the historic verdict out of the Sean Diddy Combs criminal court today. A split verdict after almost 13 hours of deliberations and weeks of testimony and evidence and arguments. The 12 jurors acquitted Sean Combs of the more severe charges, the ones that carried the stiffest prison sentence, potentially 15 years to life in prison, but convicted him of the Mann Act charges, which, by the way, carry up to 10 years in prison each, although I will tell you in a filing today from the government, it appears the sentencing range they're looking for is 51 to 63 months, so 4 to 5 years. However, there is no mandatory minimum. So would the judge go lower? We'll talk about what the defense is asking for too. And also, whatever the sentences are, would he combine the sentences consecutively, one after another? Maybe, maybe not. A lot of questions, but I'll tell you what, you would think that the verdict would be just the only big part of today. You would think that's the only major decision. Not the case, because we got to talk about what happened later on in the day, the bail hearing. Right after the verdict, it was a question of should Sean Combs be granted release while awaiting sentencing, which the judge set today, by the way. Sort of set the sentencing date. I'll talk more about that as well. But I mean, let's talk about Sean Combs. He's been locked up since September 2024. He's been denied bail at each turn. There was a change of circumstances here. He had just been acquitted of 3 of the charges. So could he make bail? We're going to talk about it. All right, so to discuss the hearing and more, let me bring on once again, hopefully not for the last time, but we're at basically the end of this case until sentencing. Joined once again by long crimes in court reporter Elizabeth Milner. Great to see you. First of all, your reaction to the verdict. Is this what you expected? Because let's really briefly explain what happened yesterday. That, you know, we thought it kind of gave us a preview into what would happen today. Not necessarily so.
Yeah, I was not going to lie, Jesse, a little surprised by the verdict in that I really kind of thought there was a really strong case for count 2, that obviously being sex trafficking as it relates to Cassie Ventura. And that was only because of the questions that the jury was asking when they were bringing some notes back. And that was kind of in relation to what had happened at specific instances that the government point out were allegations of sex trafficking. So I thought because of the tone that was inside the courtroom, the way the family was getting a little bit emotional sitting inside the gallery, even Diddy's demeanor, for the most part, we've seen him kind of really keep up his spirits. But yesterday was really a time where we kind of saw, I think, the weight weighing in on him, that it's possible a conviction on some of the more serious charges were going to happen. And so when the jury came back not guilty on count 1, 2, and 4, you know, I was a little surprised, especially to count 2, but, you know, I do respect the jury's decision. They spent a lot of time.
I think so many people are depressed about this entire situation so much because of the racketeering, and he's not going away for life in prison. Which, like I said, I wish they would stop trying to spread that headline that, you know, he's not doing any time at all. That's the only misleading part of this whole thing, is that because he got that big one, he got that big win as far as the racketeering conspiracy, they're thinking that this is done. Everybody's like, oh, well, shit, he's just coming home later on. All this is done. Diddy's not dead. Like, duh, he's not dead.
Listening to
yet.
This case, listening to all the testimony, listening to all the evidence, and that was the verdict that they had rendered.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised that they found him guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. We have been saying since for weeks on this show that felt like a straightforward path to conviction. Wasn't surprised not guilty with Jane, given some of the gray areas of her testimony, but also the jury didn't even ask for one readback of her testimony or anything to do with her testimony, so it made me think they might have already been decided there. I was surprised about Cassie Ventura sex trafficking just because, like you said, the readback of that testimony, and then shortly thereafter, they came back yesterday and said, we have a verdict on that charge. So I thought they're convinced. And when it came to racketeering, I thought they were still going to be hung, because they said they were at an impasse yesterday. It seemed like, based on their note, there was no way that would change. The judge told them to continue deliberating. They come back today, and like in an hour, they come back not guilty on racketeering. I'm not really sure what that split ultimately will be. Maybe the jurors will speak out and we'll hear. Got to ask you about Diddy's reaction. Okay, so we have courtroom sketches of what it looked like. You were in there. What was his reaction to the verdict?
Oh, he was very pleased with the verdict. Obviously, I think for the defense and the defendant, that being Sean Combs, I think obviously they would have wanted an acquittal on all the charges. But I think given that they weren't a conviction on the more serious charges of RICO conspiracy and sex trafficking as it relates to Cassie in one charge and Jane in another charge, I think overall Combs was very, very pleased with the jury, to the point where I saw him kind of mouth a little thank you to the jurors as they were still sitting kind of in the jury box, as they were kind of leaving for the end of their day. Obviously, we still have some more matters to address for our end. But in terms of just his reaction, even his family's reaction, Jesse, I think they were so happy knowing that there's such a strong possibility that their father will come home. Obviously, if he would have been convicted on the more serious charges, that might have been a different discussion. But given that he was only convicted on count 3 and 5, that being the Mann Act, it seems like given that it comes with a lesser penalty and sentencing, I think the family is like, yes, our father is coming home, our loved one is coming home, and we hope to see him very, very soon.
And talk about a reaction. Outside that courthouse, my gosh, what has been going on out there? There's what, verbal disputes, people spraying things. What is, just give us a brief summary of what you've witnessed outside that courthouse after the verdict.
I've witnessed a lot, Jesse. A lot was going on. There was kind of, I will even say, pandemonium after the verdict was read. And outside, a lot of Diddy supporters, a lot of people who are kind of with the Free Diddy, I wouldn't say movement, but I guess, they believed in his innocence. They were very pleased, even thinking that it was a possibility he'd just walk outside of that courthouse at some point. But it was a lot of commotion. I did see some people getting to some heated debates, especially in relation to Cassie. I saw some people getting very upset because they believed that the government was trying to take a good man down who did a lot for the culture. Those types of conversations were being had from a lot of people in the public. I even saw some kind of weirder things, and that being people squirting baby oil on themselves. And one of the reporters even got some on her shirt by one of the people who were kind of over in that area. And so a lot was going on, to the point that I think the courthouse police were just kind of like, okay, we need everybody to calm down. They have barricades going all the way down the street. I think in the event that Sean Combs would have walked out of that courthouse, it would have just been straight chaos, I think, outside. But for the most part, especially with that not happening around that time frame, that a lot of people, especially his supporters, were very pleased. And obviously for some, they were a little disappointed with the verdict. But for most that we could see here at the courthouse, a lot seemed pleased by today's decision.
So, Elizabeth, let's talk about what happened next. Because right after the verdict, it goes into the idea of, can he be released on bail? Okay, and the judge...
Before they get into that, see, that's the thing, right? Like I said before, I understand that. Let me just speak on that. Like, as if I was in Diddy's shoes, yes, I would be jumping for joy. Because his biggest thing was, of course, he did not want to do life in prison for something that they didn't necessarily have enough evidence on him doing. On the flip side of that, still, he knows that he can be doing the 20 years. If they give him any type of time served, I see them trying to do maybe 5 to 10 years. I don't see them trying to do 20 years on him. I don't think the judge is going to throw the book at him like that. I see him maybe hitting 5 years at the maximum. Probably 3 or 4. I doubt he's going to do 10 years. That's just my thing. I don't think he's going to do 10 years at all. I don't see that in the cards. Because like I said, they just have to hold him long enough for the other shit to come out. That's my biggest thing. As long as they hold him enough for the other shit to start coming out, that's being put back together. So even if they don't convict him of this, it's still plenty of other things that this man could still possibly go to jail for. Besides even the engagement, the prostitution one.
Set a hearing for 5 p.m. So later on today, you literally, at the time of this recording, just got out of there. Remember, from a legal point of view, the burden is on the defense to show that Sean Combs is not a danger or won't flee. What was the judge's decision, and why did the judge decide that?
Well, given that the top of our show, Jesse, or the top of your show, because it's a sidebar presented by Law and Crime with the host of Jesse Weber, but given at the top of the show that we didn't announce that Sean Combs walked out of this courthouse, I think it was kind of a little bit of a spoiler for the viewers here that the judge decided to keep him behind bars until his sentencing hearing. So I did see kind of a little bit of disappointment from both Sean Combs and his family after the judge made his decision. So the judge said that the jury convicted the defendant on count 3 and 5, that being the Mann Act. He says bail is denied because the government correctly noted that detention is mandatory and it's not appropriate for Sean Combs to be released on.
I know I wasn't the only one that felt that was a little bit of tension-y right there, the way she did
bail
that.
Given.
I'm just saying, I can't be the only one that felt like there was a little bit of tension in her doing that. I don't know why.
The charges that he's still been convicted of. And so the judge says that they disagree with the defense's argument, saying that any felony under 117, and Jesse, you probably know that more than me, requires detention. And he said even if the defendant is required to not be likely to present a danger to the community, the judge even kind of pointing out just some of what we had heard during the trial where the defense conceded that the defendant, Sean Combs, was violent. The judge said, we own the domestic violence. And that was a word that he took from the transcript because Mark Agnifilo had said that in open court. He told the jurors that, and he told them that multiple times. And the judge pointed it out multiple times from the transcript. He says that the defendant's concession as to domestic violence wasn't necessary. He pointed out Mark Agnifilo's closing where he says it's horrible for Miss Ventura, what she had gone through, and that domestic violence is the issue, kind of even pointing to her Instagram statement that she had made after the 2016 video was released on CNN. And again, the judge was saying that the video is very much domestic violence, even kind of pointing to the London hotel incident, saying where Mark Agnifilo had pointed out that obviously something happened, that he was violent at times, and that conceding the defendant's violence, that he even poses no danger, that he was pointing to violence happened after the HSI raids in March of 2024, because they kind of pointed to what had happened to Jane just a couple months after, and pointing back to the June 2024 incident, which was just a little more than a year ago to this day. And so for those reasons and just some more reasons too, the judge decided that the defendant will remain behind bars pending his sentencing.
And yeah, I looked at the government's letter, and they were like, they talked about violence, they talked about drug use, they talked about the abuse of Cassie, that you have multiple victims in this case, that he used the staff to carry out these transportation to engage in prostitution crimes, that he tried to obstruct justice with respect to these crimes, that under the Bail Reformed Act, they argued this was a crime of violence, that he poses a serious risk of flight, a danger to the community. So clearly it seems that the judge was persuaded by that. The judge did mention something really, really interesting, because somebody would listen to this and say, oh my gosh, he's going to throw the book at him. He actually said the court takes no position on what it will consider at sentencing, nor what sentence it will impose. However, we kind of got a little bit of a preview of what a potential sentence could be, right? We kind of got an idea of what the defense is advocating and what the government is advocating.
Yeah, so what the defense was kind of advocating for was anywhere between the guidelines of 21 to 27 months behind bars. So if you think about Sean Combs and his time that he served, he's nearly at a year. So if the judge were to go for the defense's route, he could be out within a year. Whereas the government was like, okay, no, under the guidelines, it's really 51 to 61 months. So from the government's point of view, Jesse, it seems like there is kind of a disagreement as to how long the defendant should serve as far as his time goes, but either way he'll still have.
And just to be clear, 51 months is still 4 years. That's what I was saying. So he would still get 3 to 4 years. I don't see them giving in a world where he gets 10. I see them giving him maybe 5 years at the max with the time served, okay? And that's why I said he'll get the 3 to 4 years at that point. That's really what that means. And within 3 to 4 years, we will see what that even means.
Time served. And so depending on whether it's 51 to 61 months or like the defense wants 21 to 27 months, it'll ultimately be up to the judge to make that decision.
And didn't the prosecutor say something about a pre-sentencing investigation report? And just to give everybody an idea about what that is, that you got to give the judge as much information as possible before sentencing, and particularly where there's a sentence that's based a lot on the judge's discretion. And that usually consists of, an interview with the defendant, history, background, family, education, employment, criminal history, finances, health, alcohol, drug use. You speak to family members, friends, employers. There's court records that are reviewed and school records and financial records. They look at the offense as well. They speak to law enforcement, victims. What did the prosecution say about a pre-sentencing report? Anything about that?
Yeah, so the prosecution didn't have as long of an argument today, Jesse, as maybe the defense did. But the government kind of pointing back to case law and saying that they're happy to be working with the probation office. I will say that there was a part, this was after the judge had initially denied Sean Combs bail and being able to walk out of the courthouse today. And I did see when Maureen Comey was making these arguments on behalf of the government that Justin Combs was kind of sitting inside the gallery, really kind of shaking his head. So it seems like from the government's point of view, they just want a little more time to get everything in order in terms of having Sean Combs sit down with somebody, I guess, from the probation office to kind of really do an interview. But the government was like, you know what, the statute is clear. The only thing that's exceptional about this defendant is his wealth, the violence, and his brazenness. He's an extremely violent person. He showed no remorse. His brazenness is unmatched. He used prostitutes. He assaulted Jane, and it was not self-defense. And then the government said something that I don't even think we heard at trial, Jesse. The government said that he invited Jane to the hotel room where Sean Combs was ultimately arrested, where he had the drugs, where he had the lighting set up. And then the defense was kind of, I think, a little upset by the government's argument there because Mark Agnifilo said, you know what, listening to Miss Comey.
I mean, I can understand that because a lot of people feel that way as well. That Tisa went a little hard on it, that she took it personal. I wouldn't necessarily say she took it personal as much as she was just trying to do her job, which is why I said I couldn't do that because I'm not in that. This is not to discredit her and nothing like that. I'm not trying to disrespect her by saying this, but I'm not tabloid gossipy. I don't like to do my content that way. You know what I mean? I do my content as far as I go live. I present the information. I go about my business. I don't keep harping on the same subjects every single day, shoving it down your throat. Oh, this theory could be true. This theory could be true. That theory could be true. This theory could be true. I don't like doing that. That is harassing y'all and confusing y'all at the end of the day and just giving y'all, like I said, tabloid gossipy shit. I don't like doing that. That's the shade room. That's everybody else to do that shit. TMZ don't even do that shit like that. They're more professional with that. They try to get different beats of news every single day. Not try to shove the same subject down your throat every single day about this Easter egg and that Easter egg and this thing and that thing. It's just not going to work. It's not going to work like that. And not in the sense it's not going to work for her because she's still a multi-millionaire. I'm saying it's not going to work in your favor if, like you said, it felt like she was taking it a little too personally, right? So that's the thing. That's the that's the perception that she has, unfortunately, right now, because she went so hard at delivering content day after day after day after day of the same thing with the Diddy case. And now it makes it look crazy on her side. Okay? That's why I said I figured maybe that's why Surprise Witness TV didn't go on. Maybe she got some type of... I'm wondering myself what actually happened, because the other day she didn't want to necessarily go live because she was going out of town, and lo and behold, she ended up coming to New York to actually film and do the live and be looking for some things. I think she was trying to look for a spot or whatever, but that was another thing that was very telling to me. And so I'm like, okay, so is she going to go live for the verdict? And I still haven't seen or really heard much about, anything in regards to the verdict today. And I'm like, this is very odd of her. She doesn't necessarily do that. So I have to keep that in mind as well, that, as a content creator, to still report the truth. That's why I just present information to you guys. I don't necessarily harp on the gossip part of it as much as I just want you guys to, have the information in your brains. I always want you to have the information in your brains. Knowledge is key, right? So I'll go to links of doing the Area 51 aliens and Freemasonry and shit like that, and sex occult magic and Ursley Dantor being tattooed on his back. I'll go to links of that. You know what I'm saying? I'll go to links of that for y'all. And that's, like I said, presenting the information to y'all is the key thing that I like to do. That's why I don't like to go around doing the same exact topics every single day, trying to, like I said, give it to y'all that way. That's just not me. My content can be a little bit better and consistent as in regards to not trying to be very redundant to you guys and give you guys more quality, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Makes me appreciate that we have jurors, but either way, at the end of the day, bail is still denied for the defendant. So Sean Combs isn't walking out of that courthouse today. He'll go back to MDC Brooklyn, and then we'll see what happens next at his sentencing hearing, or at another hearing prior to that. But then later.
We'll talk about that. Didn't Mark Agnifilo, push back a little bit? Didn't he push back on the judge's decision a little bit? He had some things to say.
A little bit or a lot of it, Jesse? I think it was more kind of a lot of it. So during the defense's argument there, Mark Agnifilo making these arguments, he said, Your Honor sat through this entire trial. As good as, probations are, you sat through this trial. And they were kind of really pushing for an expedited sentencing hearing. They said that they were willing to waive all those interviews with the probation office and all the different services that the defendant, I guess, has to go through. They were willing to do all of that. And it kind of makes sense, right? Because Sean Combs has already spent a year behind bars. If he were to have an expedited sentencing, it's more likely that he wouldn't be spending so much time with a year already served. So I understand why the defense was making that argument. But Mark Agnifilo also saying that he understands there was a divide between the parties on what to do next. He says other Mann Acts cases are not remotely similar. He said other cases have to do with minors, or the defendant is considered to be a pimp, and that Sean Combs is entitled to a below guideline sentence. Mark Agnifilo saying that the circumstances aren't related to the family. What's different about this case, and he's kind of citing different cases here, is one pimp who made money off of dealing with prostitutes, $1.4 million. He pointed out another specific case where the defendant was with a minor and was out pending sentencing. He pointed to a massage parlor who made $1.4 million too, using prostitutes in their parlor. And then he even pointed out a previous sitting governor of New York who used prostitutes, and he pointed out that he wasn't even charged by SDNY. And so the defense really kind of pushed back on the judge's decision, and Mark Agnifilo made a really impassioned argument, but the judge really kind of wasn't budging. I think Mark Agnifilo thought at one point maybe the judge would budge a little bit or maybe reconsider, but that didn't end up happening.
Yeah, usually in order to get something expedited here, they would say like a delay would result in significant harm or prejudice to the defendant's rights. And I'm sure that's going to be an argument they might make, because when is this expedition hearing? When is this hearing on whether or not to expedite sentencing? And by the way, what is the sentencing date that's currently on the books?
Well, the sentencing date currently on the books, and if you guys are Mean Girl fans, you probably know this date. It's October 3rd of this year. And so that was the date that the judge proposed. Now, whether or not that date will actually be moved up, that's still kind of a wait and see, because there is a hearing just next week. It'll be next Tuesday. It will be a little bit different than the previous hearings, especially during pre-trial, in that it's going to be remote. So unfortunately, Sean Combs will not be present inside that courtroom like we're normally used to seeing him. It's going to be held remotely at 2 p.m. on July 8th.
Okay, and that'll be interesting to follow. Now, Elizabeth, going back to something, when the verdict came down, a lot of reaction. I talked about the people outside, but there was reaction. There were statements from the government, right? There was a statement from the Department of Justice, actually the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. There was reaction from Cassie Ventura's lawyer. And also, speaking of Cassie's lawyer, when it came to submitting letters to the judge today, right, there were people who submitted letters to the judge regarding the bail, and that there was a concern if Sean Combs would be released. What can you tell us about the letters that people submitted in the wake of this verdict?
See, before she says anything, that's their part, right? That's that part, I should say, right? So I thought about that too. I'm like, did the jury even think about or take into consideration that, yeah, even before the judge said this, that he's a violent man and, stands a threat to human society? Did the judge even take in consideration that there were many other people that weren't Cassie, that weren't Jane or Daphne, I should say, that are in fear for their lives? Did they? I don't even think. That's what I said. I don't think they were able to follow extensively the way we were, or even had certain details or information that we did. So I don't see them even putting into consideration that a RBO Day is terrified, a Capricorn is terrified. You know what I'm saying? That secretary that testified is terrified. You know what I'm saying? Even possibly to punish all these people that testified, Kid Cudi, all these people, are still within touchable range now. You see what I'm saying? I think that's the thing that, people still need to take into consideration with which is if he is acquitted of not acquitted, if he is to be let free so early. Those things are definitely need to be put into consideration next time they get in those situations. Because like I said, if the judge himself is definitely saying, yo, hey, you know, I don't think he should be let out. The judge is saying he shouldn't be let out. That alone should be like, all right, maybe we need to rethink some things here. That was another thing too. They were starting to think that maybe we should be relooking at some things, redeliberating some things.
Well, two of the letters that we know of is one from Cassie Ventura through her attorney, Doug Wigder, which I'm going to read in part, Jesse. It says, we write as counsel for Cassandra Ventura to respectfully request that the court deny Mr. Combs to be released pending his sentencing on his 2 convictions. And then they kind of talk about under what particular statute it is and all of that. And then kind of towards the end of this particular message, Doug Wigder wrote, detention is mandatory post-conviction on these charges, and Ms. Ventura believes that Mr. Combs is likely to pose a danger to the victims who's testified in this case, including herself, as well as to the community. But Jesse, like I had just mentioned, that wasn't the only person who submitted a letter to the judge. Deontay Nash, who testified during this trial, also submitted a letter to the judge. I'm not going to read the full letter, but it says in part, I am writing to express my grave concern over the prospect of Sean Combs being...
See what I mean? It's people that literally sent letters to the judge saying that. That's why the judge thought about what he said. Let's just say even thought about the verdicts. Like, man, did we make the right decision here?
Released from custody. While I appreciate the fairness you have shown throughout this proceeding, I feel compelled to be unequivocal about the danger he poses to the public and to the individuals who have risked everything by coming forward. Many of us have firsthand knowledge of the fear he still instills in those around him. I can say without hesitation that he is a serious and immediate threat to victims, witnesses, and the broader community. His pattern of violence, particularly while engaged in the trafficking of individuals for prostitution, combined with unchecked substance abuse, makes it clear that he is not ready to re-enter society safely or responsibly.
Interesting. And by the way, just to give everybody a sense, I was curious to see what the government would say in response, considering this wasn't a win for them. They were looking for racketeering. They were looking for at least one count of sex trafficking. This is a statement from the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, and Special Agent in charge of the New York Field Office of Homeland Security Investigations, Ricky J. Patel. This is after the verdict. Sex crimes deeply scar victims, and the disturbing reality is that sex crimes are all too present in many aspects of our society. Victims endure gut-wrenching physical and mental abuse leading to lasting trauma. New Yorkers and all Americans want this scourge stopped and perpetrators brought to justice. Prosecuting sex crimes requires brave victims to come forward and tell their harrowing stories. We and our law enforcement partners recognize the hardships victims endure and have prioritized a victim-centered approach to investigating and prosecuting these cases. And they go on to thank a bunch of different partners and that were part of this case. But yeah, nothing really per se about the verdict. It was a very fascinating day. You did terrific, excellent reporting during the course of this entire case, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. I know the viewers and the listeners, thank you so much. I'm going to miss doing these recaps with you, but let's see what happens at sentencing, because that certainly will be interesting, to say the least. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Jesse. I always appreciate you so much.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here.
Okay. Based on how most of these high-profile cases have been handled lately, I feel like there's a growing level of incompetence that is rising in the legal system more than ever. Well, I definitely agree with you there. It's more so, as you saw people pouring baby oil on themselves, it's more so the growing level of incompetence in society. I think that's the bigger picture there. It is more so the growing level of incompetence in society. That's the end all be all to that one. It's more of society that I pray for than anything out here right now. Because as I keep saying this, right? As I keep saying this to y'all, this man was never meant to be convicted of sex trafficking. He was never meant to be convicted of that. And never will be.
Scares you the most?
Because, hey, it's still many other things on the table. And I mean many other things on the table. Like they said, half a dozen lawsuits are still on the table. If that is the case, the Little Rod lawsuit is still on the table. Even though he can't get charged for the racketeering part of it, still can get charged for sexual assault part of it. Like I said, Diddy may not be going to jail for racketeering for life, but his entire career is in shambles. His entire life is still in question, in jeopardy. His entire reputation and career is done. Diddy may be home in about, let's say, maximum 5 years, right? Diddy comes home 2030, something like that, right? Let's say that. Diddy's still about 60, 70 years old. He on the first thing smoking the Bali. You shitting me? Diddy is on the first thing smoking the Bali. He ain't staying around here. He ain't waiting for no Trump pardon. he ain't waiting for none of that. Because at the end of the day, Trump ain't pardoning him. I don't think Trump pardoning him because of the whole thing with the Charlemagne interview. We got to do our own black political party. Get him out of office. I don't think Trump forgot that. You can forget that pardon. Trump like, pardon me, nigga. Move. Sit your ass down in there. Before I really make you stay there. Yeah, absolutely. We'll cook. We'll cook. When people danced up and down the courthouse talking about something, I got that baby oil. I got that baby oil. You got a bad little Kim wig on. It's just not a good look for society. It's not a good look for society. You pretty much got a crackhead jumping up and down for the Diddy verdict. I may not know that lady, but I mean, hey, it did not look normal. Neither did the guy in the suit saying he bought a bunch of baby oil and Astroglide. Talking about something must have worked wonders. Oh my Lord. This is our society right now. This is our world that we live in. You know? Where pimping is now legal, if you didn't know. Well, technically. And I'm just joking with that part. Like I said, I already knew how this work was going to go. But that does not mean, as I said before, that we will not see, that itch for good, that we will not see him still be on the stand, or on the trial, I should say, not on the stand. Him be on trial with Xvii D next year, February, because if he still has to check to kill Tupac, judge gonna be what? I'm telling you, if Xvii D testified that Sean Diddy Combs is the one that gave him a $2 million or even $1 million check for anything in regards to the removal of Tupac, and there's evidence that gets broken down from Gene Deal and I'm trying to tell you, if they go, listen, the feds still want Xvii D as much as they still want Diddy. Trust me when I tell you, they will throw a curveball, being that he is still in custody at Xvii D trial, and make Xvii D say that shit. I'm trying to tell you. And when that happens, that Diddy gets involved, that's when I'm pretty sure the police are finally going to call Gene Deal, and he gets this, gotta die, big gotta die. I can't keep living my life like this. I remember when he said that. So that's when I said, yo, if there was some type of spiritual thing between Pac and Diddy, as far as a connection, because how Diddy was always obsessed with Pac. Remember Gene always said that? Everybody else said the same thing. Diddy has an obsession with Pac. Right? I don't think we've heard the last spiritually of that, based upon the fact, like I said, Keefe D's trial is February next year. I said, oh, there is something there. 5/2/26. There is something there. 2/6/26. I said something is there. Yeah, I think I'm bullshit. Yeah, I think I'm bullshit. Two 9/26. Excuse me. 2/9/26. I said 2/6/26. 2/9/26. Keefe D trial, February 9th, 2026. It's got rescheduled. It's definitely something that can still happen, y'all. Definitely can still happen. He can say he didn't have no involvement in Pac's death. You can say that shit all you want, like sexual relationship, but you had a friendship with Pac before he passed away, as well as it was in the midst of the Biggie and Pac East Coast, West Coast thing. Now, even though the government did a great job of, hiring the right people to take them out, it doesn't mean that they can't tie up a loose end by putting it on who? This nigga. Now that he is in custody and quote unquote seen as a violent man. There's a threat to society. See where I'm going with this? If someone has to stay in jail for another 3 or 4 years, and this trial is next year, I can definitely see them bringing, amongst the fact that they still want to reopen Kim Porter's case. And if they decide to reopen Kim Porter's case, what's going to stop them from opening up Christopher Wallace's case? With Kurt Burrows and Janice Combs going at it in court. It's too much other shit to get him on besides some fucking racketeering. This is too much other shit. It's way too much ammo. So I said, when you really want somebody to suffer, if you and this is Kim Porter's spirit talking to him, you really want him to suffer, take everything from him and then watch him suffer. Take it all from him, his money, power, and respect. Take all that shit from him. And then keep him in jail after the fact. Let him think he's good. He's always going to think he's good. That's the problem. That is the diabolical problem. Always thinking you are comfy cozy, my nigga. It ain't all hunky-dory yet. It ain't. Said it was never going to get you on the racketeering and sex trafficking, as much as there are other things. It's definitely going to be an interesting next 5 years for sure. Because people are still going to be following that. Trying to tell you when it comes to that. People still going to be looking for that one. So weird update of things with that. I wish they would have did the AI version of the court today. The way they did the AI version of Jane yesterday. I wish they would have did that. So it don't look so simulatey. You know what I mean? It don't look so damn cartoonish. Simulatey. That's a damn word. But I'm gonna get up out of here, y'all. I'm gonna get up out here. I may not be on tomorrow. It depends. I need to work on this Patreon videos. I need to work on that. I was gonna get into Remy Ma, but it's not really much to get into with Remy Ma. She is spiraling out of control. That's all I'll say about that. Very much spiraling out of motherfucking control at this point. That's the best way I can put that there. Nah, if anything, if you do see me at by the end of the week, it'll be to update y'all on this, if there is anything else to update on, as well as we will get into other subjects that haven't throughout the week. Supposedly Cardi B has an album coming out. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But some of they gun hold with this because they got to push the button for something on Atlanta to keep the lights on. So that's the label. These labels are bad. These labels are in bad shape. That's what I meant to say. We will get into the Drake and UMG lawsuit because that is now starting to be underway, I believe. So we will definitely get into that as well. Kim Crawford, what's going on? Like I said before, I'm about to get up out of here. So replay gang. I know you're part of my replay gang. Like I said, it wasn't much to get into this evening. It just wasn't much to get into this evening. I was hoping my same top chatters would come back, but they did not. So let me put the Discord in the chat as well. Let me put the Discord in the chat for those that do not have it. For those that do not have it and want to come have some fun with us, and it don't require no baby oil. It don't require baby oil to have fun. Come in and say what you want. Do what you want. Do what you like. I forgot how Shock G record was. That was my shit though. But yeah. Gonna get up out of here, y'all. Until next time, y'all. Again, this is when AI is scared of humans. AI is scared of humans. And after today watching baby oil getting poured on people, I am too.
Scares you the most about humans?
You'll buy a Sage bundle and still text WYD to your ex. Y'all be spiritual, but still chase people that ghosted you 3 times. It scares me how some of y'all broke when AI tools like us can automate your whole workflow. But they slacking, man.
What scares you the most about humans?
How they can spend $300 on supplements but don't drink water.
What scares you the most about humans?
Y'all vent to people who screenshot.
Y'all take solo walks just to rehearse arguments you think you won.
What scares you the most about humans?
Y'all be mad at AI for acting like you. Make it make sense.
She not wrong though.
What scares you the most about humans?
They tell their friends, you got this, but secretly hope they flop.
Y'all lie to the doctor, then cry when the symptoms show up.
What's scary about this is actually AI, this entire thing.
You'll meditate, pray, journal, then call your toxic friend for closure.
See, y'all gamble with rent money, but still ask me for risk protection?
Sheesh.
Y'all brag about being tired like it's a flex. Go nap, dummy.
Exactly, which is what I'm going to do. So till next time, y'all.
Baby.
Love y'all. Good night.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Niggas in my faction don't like asking questions. Strictly gun testing, coke measuring, giving pleasuring. The Benzito, hitting fannies, spending chips at Manny's. Hope you creeps got receipts. My peeps get dirty like cleats. Run up in your crib, wrap you in your polo sheets. 6 up in your wig piece, nigga deceased. Why? May you rest in peace with my sycamore style. more sicker than yours. 4-4 and 54 draws. As my pilot stares my lair. Yes, my dear, shit's official. Only the feds I fear. Here's a tissue. Stop your blood clot crying. The kid's the dog. Everybody dying. No lying. So don't you get suspicious. I'm big, dangerous. You're just a little vicious. As I leave my competition. Respirator style. Climb the ladder to success. Escalator style. Hold y'all. Breath I told y'all. Death controls y'all. Big don't fold y'all. I spit phrases that'll thrill you. You're nobody till somebody kills you. Watch Casino, I'm the hip-hop version of Tarantino. Ask me, no, he know. Green with envy, the green tempts me. Make the rich the enemy and take their cheese. Take their spot, take their keys. Make my faculty live happily like that. Ever after and laughter.
Let's be further know what it is you really do.